Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pammy Out Loud. I'm your host, Pamela Walsh, and this is a show about finding community and making connections in all sorts of ways. Today, we're going to be starting the topic of decluttering and getting organized, which is a topic that came up and was on the forefront during my conversation recently with Cass Grange, which was a couple of episodes ago. If you haven't heard it, go back and listen. It's about aging well and aging in place. And one of the things that we talked about was the problem of acquiring a lot of things. And then what do you do with these things as you get older? So I want to get into this, but before I do, I have a couple of housekeeping things I wanted to talk about. First, I always mention these show notes. Where exactly are these elusive show notes that I talk about? For those of you that are on various platforms, whatever platform you listen to me on, if you go into the episode of the day, whichever one you're listening to, you will see the link that describes what the show is about. And then also it'll mention my wonderful producers, shout out to Shody Media, as well as the music, which is produced and created by the very talented Canon Davis, as well as theoretically links to things that I've talked about during the show. I have to admit that I haven't been particularly good at putting everything in the show notes that I say I'm going to put in there. So I want to give y'all a commitment that I will do a better job about that. But I am just really curious. Does anybody look at the show notes? Like, I've listened to hundreds of podcasts and they always say video in the show notes, link in the show notes. I have never gone to that, but I'm going to still put that material there. I'm also going to encourage you, if you're on Facebook, please join the Pammy Out Loud public Facebook group. We're at about 350 people, I think, now that have joined. And I'm going to be sure and put those notes in the Facebook blog, along with pictures of my guests and anything else that might relate to what we've been talking about. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do. I also want to encourage y'all, if you haven't followed me, you can follow me on Instagram at Pammy_Out Loud. I think there's an underscore in there. And then also you can find me. Oh, yes, you can email me, pammyoutloud@gmail.com. And speaking of that, I got an email just recently about another episode we had. Actually, it was the same episode with Cass, where we talked about the Game On diet. And Kim wrote in and asked if I would talk a little bit more about that book and what the Game On diet was. So I do want to tell you all about that. There will be a link in the show notes, as well as on Facebook, to the book. It is called The Game On Diet, written by Krista Varnoff, V as in Victor, ERNOFF. And she's got kind of an interesting history. She is a showrunner for Grey's Anatomy and was one of the head writers for a number of the seasons. Pretty much they call her the voice of Meredith Grey. She wrote a lot of her dialogue. So anyway, the book is hilarious. It's if you're familiar with Grey's Anatomy, it has a lot of that same type of humor written throughout it. And she wrote the book in conjunction with a partner who provided a lot of the backing for the program parameters. So anyway, that is the book. It is available on Amazon, and I will have it on my Facebook post as well as in the show notes. So now let's get started. What are we talking about today? Well, I'm really excited because I want to deep dive into this topic of decluttering and getting organized. Cass and I brought this up, and, it's one of those things that everybody talks about wanting to do. Some of us are better at it than others. I happen to fall into the category of not being very good at it. I have the best of intentions. I'm always trying, I come from a family that has really good genes as it relates to being organized. My parents are both really good at downsizing things and not having a lot of clutter and miscellaneous things. Every time they have moved from house to house, they have downsized, gotten rid of more. Everything is very organized. And all three of my sisters seem to possess that same gene. I did not get it. I got the creative gene. And I sometimes, I don't know, I think there is something to be said about people that are creative. They don't have that left brain sense of organization. It just doesn't come to me. I wish it did. I have read hundreds and hundreds of books. Well, I don't know. I haven't probably read hundreds. Let's say I've scanned hundreds and hundreds of books. I've listened to them. I've watched a lot of Oprah Winfrey back in the day on getting organized. And it just isn't something that that comes naturally to me. That said, as I've gotten older, I have found that, and also now having two homes, I really find that I need to minimize and downsize. So, one of my big fears, and this is going to sound really morbid, but I swear to God, I have this as a motivator. Every time I get on a plane to fly either to Colorado or back to Texas, I am thinking, if we drop dead and my daughters-in-law have to go into our houses, what are they going to say when they open up the kitchen drawers and say, oh my God, why did your mom have 3 potato peelers? She didn't even make potatoes, right? So there are a lot of things like that. And that has been a real motivator, is that I just don't really want my daughters-in-law to judge me after the fact. I'm sure they already are. But that being said, I am working really hard on trying to reduce and get rid of the clutter in my life for them as well as for myself. You cannot organize clutter. That's one of the things that I have read frequently, is you have to actually get rid of things. You can't just get boxes and try to organize what you already have. Most of us, everybody has more than they need for the most part, right? So how can we best do that? And I'm envisioning that this is going to be a conversation that goes on over several episodes, because there's lots of different things to look into about ways to do it, ways to approach it. And today, what I really want to focus on is, what are the roadblocks to decluttering? What causes us to struggle to get rid of things? I've been reading a lot of different material, looking at videos online, and I've come up with I've identified 8 things that are common threads for people when they're trying to get rid of things. And so I'd like to today talk about these and see which one of these things resonate with you. Do you identify with any of these points? Are there others that come up for you as you consider, how do I get rid of things? Now, why is it important that we do this anyway? I tell you that the show is about finding connections and building community. What does decluttering have to do with that? Well, when you live in chaos, there is not time to make those connections that you want. You are distracted. You are frequently, if you suffer with clutter, your things are lost. You're looking for things. You waste time. You're distracted from making the genuine connections with other people. So I believe that there is a lot in the process of decluttering and getting organized that's important in making connections. Most of all, the connection with yourself, to be at peace and to feel relaxed and calmness in the environment that you live. So today, let's talk about some of those roadblocks to decluttering. I've thought of some of the things that come up for me what things are the things that cause clutter in your life? Like I heard there was somebody talked about, stacks of magazines. And there was an organizer who said, stacks of magazines, things or stack of books, a pile of dirty laundry, things like this, they become white noise for you. And what does that mean? You quit seeing them, right? That stack of magazines you're going to go through someday. Magazines, maybe not so much as they used to be back in the day. Catalogs were huge for me back when I was raising kids. I had all kinds of catalogs. Now we can do it all online, but when you have a stack of something and it's been sitting there for so long, you quit seeing it, right? You quit seeing it. So the other things that typically come up for people are duplicates, like I said, of kitchen gadgets. We often have things that have been given to us, whether it's gifts or things that we've inherited from other people, things that we collect and save and hold on to with the intention of passing it on to other people. And so with all of that in mind, I want you to start to think about what are the things that you hold on to and why do you do it? And then further, ask yourself, is that the real reason? Like, if you're holding on to things for your adult children, for example, do they even want it? Do they even want it? So, saving it for your kids, that's a big one. And I have told y'all this story about how I saved, I created these boxes for each of my 3 boys, and I put their keepsakes and valuables and things in it that I was saving for them, right? And then when I gave a box to my oldest son and his wife and held up his little outfit that he came home from the hospital in, and my daughter-in-law said, "Oh, that'll look so cute on our dog Tito." And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. These are my memories. They're not hers. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, who are you saving this stuff for? And do they really want it? And if it is for your children, ask them, do you want these things? Go ahead and get them on out the door to them. So don't let the idea that your kids want your stuff be a reason that you don't get rid of it, right? So they don't want, I'm reading the book right now. It's called Nobody Wants Your Shit. And that is the truth. And here's the thing too, as we think about this, people, if you don't declutter your stuff, if you don't get rid of it, somebody else is going to have to do it. And that's not a job you really want to put on anyone, right? All right, so let's move on. So number 1, we save things for other people. Second thing, and this is probably just the biggest one, roadblock to decluttering, is inertia. It is an overwhelming task, and particularly so when stuff has already found a home. And this happens to those of us who've been in the same place for a long time. One of the best ways to get rid of things is to move to a new house. And, then you start to realize, okay, I don't need these things anymore, and you get rid of it. I will have to admit to you, we moved from the house that our children grew up in about 7 years ago, and there were a few boxes, and it was kind of miscellaneous papers, things that I needed to find homes for and hadn't, and they are in boxes. There's probably like 3 boxes or so. These boxes have never been opened in the 7 years that we've been in our new home. The 7 years that we've been in our new home. So how important is that stuff? Could I even tell you what's inside of it? No, I can't. Now, I haven't quite been able to bring myself to throwing them away, which I probably could I could throw them in the dumpster and I would have no idea what was in them. I haven't looked in them for 7 years. Do you think I can do it? I'm close, kids. I'm very close, but I'm just not there yet. So the second thing is inertia. Once something has found a home, it is hard to get it out and move it again. But these are things that we need to, they declutterers tell you have to pull everything out. You can't organize it. You can't organize your closet with everything in the closet. You have to take it all out. So inertia is the second thing. The third thing that is a roadblock to decluttering is it might be valuable. This has been a one that has really I've struggled with. And this has included everything from my days when I was taking 35 millimeter photographs and I had several expensive lenses and I had some old camera bodies and I couldn't, I kept thinking these are worth something. I don't use them anymore, but I don't know what to do with them. And so I just hang on to them thinking that someday I'm going to know what to do with them, but I don't. Here's another example from Wayback Time Machine. Daniel, when he was in middle school, had a tuba. I have a tuba in my closet that I think needs to go somewhere, and it's probably valuable. Probably not, because it was a middle school tuba. No, not a tuba. It was a trombone. Sorry, trombone. Anybody knows how much a middle school trombone might be worth? Let me know. But I tend to hold on to things that I think it might be valuable, but I don't know what to do with this. Another example is your grandmother's china, dishes, crystal, things that had meaning for someone else, and you feel like they're valuable, but you don't know how to get them assessed, where to get them assessed, and what they do. So they become clutter in our life. Number 4, I might need it someday. This is most likely a box of technology for me. It's cords, it's CD-ROMs, it is chargers, all these miscellaneous things that I might need someday. Now, let me just tell you, when I need a power cord or a charger, do I go digging in that rando box of stuff? Nope. I get on Amazon and I order another one. So yes, I have that box of things I might need someday. This is called the just in case problem. Here's another one of my, I have this fetish for office supplies. It's ridiculous. I kind of hoard them. I buy them. I think it has to do with the fact that my parents had a off-campus bookstore when I was growing up, and there's something that seems very soothing about office supplies. I have quite a few spiral notebooks, pens, blank journals, paper clips, scissors. I mean, if it's an office supply, I got it. Even including things like whiteout. Who even uses whiteout anymore? But I'm pretty sure I've got some at home, probably dried out. So that I might need it someday. I want to tell you a story about my office supply thing. At one point in my life, I hired a professional organizer to come over to my house. And, her big premise was you have to put like things together. So before we can organize it, we had to get all of the office supplies in one area. And one of the things that in this particular case was I had a lot of paper clips. Okay. And she said, okay, she gave me this little container. I don't remember. It was probably a 3-inch by 3-inch box. And she said, okay, when this is full, you don't need any more paper clips than that will fit into this box, right? Well, I had more than that box. And I'm just like, what should I do with these? And, I already own them. And she's like, Pam, how many paper clips do you need? Let's suppose you have some major project and you need every paper clip you've ever thought of. How many paper clips is that really, right? Now, I probably had well over 100 paper clips, and that really sunk in that, yeah, there is a point where too many is too many, right? And you need to let go of some of it. So do you hold on to things just in case you might need them someday, right? Whether it's technology cords, office supplies, or your skinny jeans, right? You hang on to those skinny jeans thinking, I might fit back into them one day. Girlfriend, if you fit back into your skinny jeans, You deserve to go out and buy yourself a new pair of skinny jeans. Throw them away because every time you look at them, they make you feel bad that you're not where you want to be. So get rid of those things. So I might need it someday. I'm holding on to it just in case. This is not a good reason to hang on to this clutter that fills our life. The fifth thing that I identified is a really difficult one, and that is I've spent all this money buying these things. Those of you that have crafts or have been into different crafts can probably identify with this. You go through this time where you buy all the accessories that you need, whether it's what was that? Creative memories. Remember that when everybody was making photo albums? It might be stamping. It might be quilting, embroidery, cross stitch, acrylic painting, jewelry making. Lots of crafts fall into this. But we have acquired things because we were interested in something at a time in our life, and we got all these supplies. And now we haven't used them, and it seems wasteful to get rid of it, right? We spent all this money, so we need to hang on to it. This falls into what that sunk cost fallacy, where that because I've spent the money, I need to hang on to it. The core issue is continuing an endeavor because of past unrecoverable investments rather than focusing on future costs and benefits. That's the sunk cost fallacy. Continuing an endeavor because of past unrecoverable investments rather than focusing on future costs and benefits. Another one of those that I think is a problem for a lot of women is makeup and hair products. We try out new lotions and creams and potions and all sorts of things for our body and our hair. And, you use it and you're like, I don't really like it, but then I spent $15 on this can of hairspray or $40 on this foundation that doesn't match my skin color, but I'll use it when when I run it. And you know what? You don't use it. Get rid of it, right? So being wasteful is a really difficult one to overcome as a roadblock to decluttering. The sixth thing that I identified is one that is probably the most difficult for all of us, I think. And that is things that are sentimental. Things that are sentimental just are very challenging to get rid of, right? Some of these are things that are sentimental to ourselves, right? Things that, like I've said, the outfit that my son came home from the hospital in, photographs. Maybe it's a blanket that your grandmother crocheted for you. Sentimental things are very difficult to get rid of. The issue is even more kind of tricky when the sentimentality that's attached to it is it was important to someone else, but it wasn't necessarily important to you. So you need to look at your sentimental things and think about that, right? So here, I'll give you an example of this. There is an organizing expert by the name of Peter Walsh, no relation, but he was popular back in, I think, the 90s, and he wrote a book. And one thing he said in that book really stood out to me. And that was that, he would go in to help people clean up their houses, and he would, he would frequently come across something like, and a woman would say, okay, he'd find a box of dishes in the basement, and somebody would say, oh, those are so important to me. Those are my grandmother's dishes. And Peter Walsh would say, no, they're not important to you, because if they're important to you, they wouldn't be in a box underneath several other boxes in the basement collecting dust, right? Things that are important to you need to be put out on display, need to have a treasured spot in your home. It's not important to you if it's in a box stuffed in your basement. And if you don't want it, chances are your daughter isn't going to want it or your grandchildren aren't going to want it. So don't just keep passing it along for somebody else's problem. Make a decision and let go of it. So he said, I'll never forget this, what to do about those dishes. He said, okay, if you don't want to use that whole set of dishes, but you're saying those dishes remind you of your grandmother and you don't want to let them go, he suggests take out one teacup and put that teacup in a curio cabinet or on display on the mantle or somewhere significant and of prominence and important to you. You don't need to hold on the place setting of 12, but just hold on to one teacup and let that be something that reminds you of your grandmother. Then you are truly honoring her and you don't need the whole box down in the basement. In my own life, I did this with my cheerleading jacket. My cheerleading jacket has lots of very good memories to me. I was hanging on to it for a long time. But you know what? A cheerleading jacket, particularly a cheerleading jacket from Canada, is very bulky. And, what did it do? It just took up space in my closet. It took up space in my closet. I couldn't bring myself to getting rid of it, right? It has all these great memories and warm, fuzzy, literally feelings to it. So using Peter Walsh's method, what I did was I cut my name. It had, not an embroidered, but it had a patch, an embroidered patch on my cheerleading jacket that had my name on it. And I removed that from the cheerleading jacket. And then I have used that to make a Christmas stocking, my Christmas stocking, that has that as my name on it. So that every Christmas when I pull it out, I see that and it reminds me of my cheerleading days, my cheerleading jacket, and I got rid of all the other bulk related to it. So the sentimentality thing is an important topic, and it's a difficult topic, but we need to look at creative ways that we can display the things that are important to us without necessarily dedicating the space to taking up that holding on to all of it would take up. A lot of my niece she likes to hang on to the artwork that her children made, but then she did realize that that's too bulky. So she's been taking digital photographs of the artwork and then getting rid of all of the bulk of the artwork. So we'll talk about more strategies as we get further into this topic of other things to do. But sentimentality is a big roadblock to decluttering. The seventh thing is another kind of a tricky psychological one, if you ask me, and that is called giving up identity or the sense of self by letting go of things. And what that meant, I had to read a little bit up on this one, but it made perfect sense when I did. And it's basically that we hang on to certain things, or the things that we hang on to express an identity of who we think we are, right? So sometimes we need to let go of this. When we let go of stuff, we are closing the chapter on that part of our life or the idea that we're going to return to that. What might be an example of that? In my own life, I went through I kind of go through phases. I don't know if you know that about me or not, but I tend to get really into a phase. FYI, right now it's Mahjong. But at one point, it was yoga. And I was really into yoga, not only practicing yoga, studying yoga. I did yoga teacher training. I collected books and books and books on yoga. I bet I have, I don't know, I'm going to say a shelf that's at least 2 feet long, but it's just yoga books, right? I still have not I haven't done anything with those books. I haven't opened them in years. They sit on this shelf there. And the idea of getting rid of them, though, is giving up that part of my life, right? It's almost saying like, you're not going to do that anymore. Or maybe even, the idea that I was going to be a yoga teacher the rest of my life. And that sent recognizing that that isn't, I got what I got out of it and it's time to let it go is important, but it's difficult. I would say also as we age, other things might be athletic endeavors. When do you decide it's time to get rid of the downhill skis? When do you decide it's time to give up? I'm not going to be doing triathlons anymore, right? I can get rid of all of the gear that I had related to that. So there is definitely a psychological component to letting go of that type of clutter. And I do clutter in air quotes because, if you're using it, if it's something that you are going to return to, no one says you need to get rid of it, but you do need to look at why are you holding on to it? And is it something that, are you going to want the old stuff that you've held on to for 20 years? Or are there new yoga books? Are there better technology related to skis, athletic equipment, whatever the particular endeavor that you're embracing? The eighth and final thing that I have identified as a roadblock to decluttering and getting organized is guilt. Ooh, guilt. And that's another psychological whammy. This most often is attached to things that have been given to us, gifts that don't quite work. It can also be things that you, again, inherited from somebody else. So you don't feel necessarily sentimental about hanging on to grandma's dishes, but you feel guilty about getting rid of grandma's dishes. So guilt is a challenging topic, but it's also one, people, most of us anyway, like I don't want somebody to hang on to something I've given to them that they don't want. So guilt we shouldn't become a storage place for other people's ideas of things that they thought we want. We can be very appreciative and grateful and let it go. So those are the 8 things that I've kind of come up with as roadblocks that I think get in the way of decluttering. I'll go over them again. Number 1 was inertia, just getting started. 2, saving it for your kids. 3, it might be valuable, so what do I do with it? 4, I might need it someday, the just in case reason. 5, I feel wasteful, the sunk cost fallacy. 6, the sentimentality problem. 7, giving up your identity or sense of self about some area of your life. And 8, guilt. If any of these things resonate with you, please chime in on our Facebook page. Send me your questions, your thoughts. Remember, my Gmail address is pammyoutloud@gmail.com. I think that this will be an interesting ongoing topic as we talk about how do we manage these things and how can we do a better job so that, we don't leave this disorganized mess behind for our children. But more importantly, it gives decluttering and organizing our life gives you a sense of peace that allows you to thrive and make connections now. So you want to do it for yourself as well as the people that you love. And remember, keep speaking out loud. Until the next time I see you, because kids, grit in your teeth gives you TMJ. Peace out.